this?
What if it pops out the bottom?
Or I don't know.
Are we actually filming right now?
Yeah, it's a little
We are?
B-roll. Yeah.
We're filming.
Okay. What if if it shoots out the bottom?
You're cleaning it.
Was this a prank?
No. But hey, guys, welcome. Episode 3. We're here. And if you didn't notice, we had a major cleanup because of a mess that occurred. But hey, shout out to our boy Bryce. Thank you, Bryce. Appreciate it. Bryce in the back is looking at us. He's laughing. Hey, I want to real quick do our famous podcast roll call. This is famous. I've been working on this. I took notes and comment feedback. Then need to change what I say. So I'm very excited to announce you guys differently today. But I'm going to go ahead and start. Bryce Sandoval, everybody. We got Renato Lopez, and also guest on the pod. In the behind the scenes, sitting in the nosebleeds, that was the cheapest ticket he can get, is Trevor. Way to go. Fear the beard. But hey, we got our amazing host. We got his gas will blow you away, Zeke Hines.
That's me.
That's him. He's full of gas. That was pretty good. I don't know. We'll rate that later. And then
You did get Taco Bell for dinner. There's a couple bags of it over there, so I
He's
don't blame the
fasting,
guy.
though, so,
That's-
yeah.
it's kind of on him if he has gas.
I did have Smoothie King, though, so it might have a similar effect, but
The
not
Hulk.
quite as much as Taco Bell.
What kind of
Smoothie
fast
King.
is that?
Yeah, facts. That's what I've been saying.
It's the cheating fast, I guess.
The Jezebel fast.
Speaking of that,
Speaking of that,
we'll get into
that's great.
Oh,
That's
you already
great.
queued it up. All right, everybody, I want you to give it up for Mr. Got Biceps and a little bit of calves, Graham McWilliams.
I have no calves. That's don't spread misinformation.
Bro skips leg day.
You skip leg day. And ladies and gentlemen, the
Hater.
most anticipated guest on the Hills podcast, Hills Youth
In
podcast
3 weeks.
history. In 3 weeks, 3 episodes. I'm trying to make this sound cool and not like bad, but this is the coolest moment of our lives right now. Give it up for Pastor Matt Mizell, everybody. On the podcast.
I'm gonna clap for myself.
Yeah. You know, when you clap for yourself, do you feel like that's appropriate or is it not appropriate? That's a question.
I
worth
just
asking.
like celebrating people. I like clapping for people. So if I clap for myself, it's fine. It's just what I do for everybody, including the guy in the mirror.
Ooh, that's nice.
Some bars.
That's a better way to say that I'm conceited. That's a more positive. I'm just
Wow.
kidding. I'm joking.
Joking, please.
Disclaimer:
Please
Vaughn
don't fire
keeps
me.
his job after the podcast.
I said on the first one, I said I enjoyed clapping for myself, and he told me I was conceited. So I think it's just like a default, like
Yeah,
Maybe it's this.
In out,
maybe
you
it's
know what I
this
mean?
seat.
but anyways,
I like the couch.
You like
it's
the
fuzzy.
couch?
Zeke, what do you
It's
think?
fuzzy.
It's pretty good.
He's like, it absorbs my gas. That's all we need to
yeah.
It's fasting
I
gas
like
when
the,
you.
I like the pillows. Look at that.
Oh, that's adorable. Hey, go ahead for our fans and our audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a lead pastor. You do all those things, but tell us a little bit about your hobbies, your interests, things that might blow somebody away like Zeke's gas.
What would blow somebody away like Zeke's gas?
We're back to youth ministry days, by the way, so we say things like this on the podcast.
Well, I like long walks on the beach.
Ooh, yeah. You were from San Diego. You were in San Diego.
Lived in
for a
San
while.
Diego for 5 years, but I love Jesus, and I love talking about him.
Come on.
That was like a Jesus juke.
That was.
I don't know. I like hiking. I like running. Like hills, mountains,
Hills.
exploration.
Okay, specific.
Love my wife and my kids. My
Exploration.
dog. What do you mean exploration? Specific about exploration?
Yeah, that's a pretty big word.
Yeah, what do you explore?
The great outdoors.
Ooh.
Canyons. Slot canyons.
What's the here's a you've been to a lot of places. You've been a lot of that. What's the coolest place you've been?
I've been to Rome. That was cool. I've been to the
Whoa.
Bahamas. That was cool.
Whoa.
But one of my favorite places ever is a slot canyon in Zion National Park, which is called the Narrows. And it's epic.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that.
You knew it?
I knew it. I knew it.
You could have been that or Angel's Landing, and I went with the Narrows, but it's awesome. It's the longest slot canyon in the world, 11 miles long. And it's got walls that go up 2,000 feet, and it's epic if you ever go. You guys ever been?
No.
Never?
Never been.
I'd love to, though.
Anybody in the nosebleeds? G's not paying attention.
The nosebleeds were shaking.
He's looking it up. He's looking up the Narrows right now.
What is the Narrows? Okay, so but you did that with Marksman, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you get started with that?
Marksman is a very fitting terminology that I think fits with a lot of dudes here, and so the idea behind it is that lots of guys are shooting for something that they don't know what they shoot. They're not shooting for the right things in life, and Marksman helps them understand what to be aiming for, and how to pull the trigger and how to shoot for what God has called them to shoot for. A marksman is a skilled and accurate shooter, and I want to help people understand what they should be shooting for according to what the Bible says.
So I got a question for you. You are a man of many occupations. Started out
sort of
as I mean, not anymore, but like, you've went through the whole Barbie of you started out with the DJ.
I think you're a DJ for life, Graham.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those, like, once you're a
think you
DJ, you're
retire.
always a DJ. But okay, no, I asked these questions because
I did win in a DJ battle against Vaughn a few weeks ago.
That was so rigged, dude.
How did you lose, Vaughn?
Everybody was gonna listen to the lead pastor's. Listen, I had some explicits. Just
Ooh.
kidding. No, that's a joke.
That was just your dancing,
Yeah, it was,
the twerking.
Yeah, we had to blur it out.
Dang.
can we get that?
Nobody won,
clipped
Vaughn.
in
It was
here?
a 3-way tie.
No, that frustrates me. You won, whatever. But anyways, what's your question?
I don't even know. No, I'm just playing. Okay, so I mean, you've done a lot, and so obviously you didn't know you were always going to be a pastor, right? I'm assuming, unless you were just like, I got to do the DJ first, and then I got to. No, I'm assuming you didn't do that. So how did this Markman based off of like how you found your way into what your purpose was? How was that kind of, how did you figure out your way initially?
That's really two different answers, but yeah, I was DJing for a long time. Won some awards as a DJ. And Zeke, you're right. Once a DJ, always a DJ. In fact, this whole setup kind of reminds me of radio, with all these microphones and whatnot. But yeah, DJing was kind of a side project when I was in college. It was never intended to be something that was long term, but it was just something that it turned out I was good at. Turned out as something that I was passionate about, and so I get to do it internationally with a cruise line, Disney Cruise Line. So it was a lot of fun, but that, working on the cruise line when I was out there, I did 3 contracts with the cruise, and cruise industry is very odd, meaning that like you're disconnected from the world. You don't know what's happening in the United States. You don't know what's happening anywhere. And so you're really disconnected working out in international waters. And I was like, this is not for me forever. So back in 2007, I think it was 2007, I had won a bunch of awards. I had trained every DJ worldwide for Disney. So things were really good for the DJ industry. I was the top recommended DJ in the state of New Mexico, got to travel all around the United States. And in 2007, I had this unsettled feeling of, this isn't what I want to do forever. This isn't, when I'm 50, 60, 70 years old, I don't want to be like the best DJ in the Southwest. I want to be doing something that has more significance to it than just spinning records, So in 2007, I started praying, God, bring me my next chapter. And honestly, I thought that next chapter would be business of some sort. I thought maybe law school. I didn't know quite what it was going to be, but I kept praying, God, the DJ business is really, really good. It's been good to me. God, you've been good to me, but I don't want to do this forever. So bring me something equivalent, perhaps something better from my perspective, but I just don't want to be in the entertainment industry anymore. And then in 2008, I was engaged to who's now my wife, Ashton. And seemingly out of nowhere, there was a church that called out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and they said, would you consider becoming a campus pastor for us? And I was like, I'm not qualified to become a campus pastor. I didn't go to school for that. I didn't go to seminary. I didn't go to Bible college or anything. But I was like, thanks, but no thanks. I'll pray about it, but really I had no intention
Did
of
you
doing
really
it.
pray?
Yeah, I might have for a minute. But then the next day, another church called and said, would you consider becoming a middle school pastor for us? And I was like, that's crazy. Somebody else just called yesterday asking about a different job at a different church, and that's nuts, different position and everything. I'm not qualified for any of it. And then the next day, another church called and said, would you consider becoming a high school pastor? And I was like, this is crazy. 3 days in a row, 3 different churches, 3 different positions. And it was in that moment that I was like, oh no. God's calling me to the ministry. Because I've been praying for a year and a half. God, bring me my next chapter. Bring me my next chapter. Bring me my next chapter. And he brought me ministry. And to be honest with you, I was ticked. Because I was like, this is not what I'm supposed to do.
Average response. Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, but some people, and this is not your story, I don't think either, Vaughn, but you and I both know people that have wanted to be pastors from when they were a little boy on. And that's the only thing they wanted to do. But that was never my dream. It wasn't in high school. It wasn't in college. I didn't go to seminary. I didn't go to college school or a Bible school. So it was never my dream to become a pastor. So it came out of left field, to be honest with you, in that 72-hour period. And when that took place, I was confused. I was ticked off. Ashton and I weren't married yet, but I remember telling her, I can't be like Jonah to not do what God has told me to do. But at the same time, I was like, God's wrong.
Yeah.
And so I'll agree to say yes, but for 12 months, and then I'm out. Like, give me 12 months to prove God wrong, and then I'm done. And here we are 15 years later.
It's a long 12 months. I'm trying to calculate it in my head. But wow.
And even then, though, the 12 months wasn't a joyride because I was no good at my job. I wasn't a good youth pastor, and so
You like Vaughn?
Wow.
I'm going to pretend that like we muted that part.
Were you like Vaughn but better? I'm kidding.
No, I just didn't know. Like literally. So between those three jobs, let me go back to my story. So Ashton and I were engaged, and we came together, and I gave her a Post-it note. We prayed about it for about a week or so, and I gave her a Post-it pad. And I said, of these three options, which one do you think is the right one? And I didn't want my opinion to influence hers. And so we both wrote down what we thought of which position, which church. And then on the count of three, we turned them around, and it was the same church, and it was the same position. So that was confirmation enough for us, like that's where we're supposed to go. So I accepted that role. But 12 months in, honestly, I hated it. I was like, this is confirmation that this is not what I'm supposed to do. Meanwhile, my marriage, Ashton and I weren't doing good. We were married by that point, so we were struggling in our marriage. I was struggling as a youth pastor, so things got dark, And through that darkness, Ashton and I got counseling. I had some mentors that spoke into my life and kept pushing for both, for marriage and my job. And ultimately, it wasn't until about 4 years later or so I moved to San Diego. And in San Diego, became a pastor out at a church called Daybreak in San Diego. And it was there that I really began to fall in love with ministry and ministering to people and becoming a shepherd to people. And I'm really thankful for that time because I wouldn't be here now,
Yeah.
Marksman is a blast. Leading this church is a blast. I'm having more fun in ministry now than I ever have before.
Come on.
Even as a youth pastor. I mean, you get to do a lot of fun stuff as a youth pastor. But for about 10 years of my life, I was a youth pastor, and now I enjoy ministry far more than ever before because I pushed through the difficult times where I wanted to quit. I wanted to throw in the white towel.
I love that because I think people don't understand how much you love that church, and I want people to understand the why that you love it, because you found a healing that made you who you are right now in this position. And I think that's I hear your passion when you're talking about that church, and I love that because for me, it's a mentor that's helped me. For you as a church and a community that helped change even your perspective on ministry. Yeah. I love that. And shout out to people from Daybreak that are watching this. It's pretty cool that you made an impact on somebody who's continuing in ministry and for that season. And now you're in this role as a lead pastor. But now you're in this role, and God's just moving. You never know.
But, you mentioned the church bringing healing, but really it's individual leaders in that church that aided in bringing healing. Yeah. And in my case, it was three different people. It was the lead pastor, the executive pastor, and I was one of two youth pastors. I was the high school pastor, and there's a mid-school pastor, and it was the middle school pastor. So Chase, I'll give him a shout-out. Chase Findell was the middle school pastor, who's now a lead pastor of a church called Anthem Church in San Diego. But he would talk me off the ledge, and he'd be like, it's not the same. This is not the same as what you came through. And I would do the same for him because he used to be on staff at a church in Las Vegas that was kind of a similar background and culture that I'd been through. And there'd be days that he would come out of a meeting like shell-shocked, and I'd be like, dude, it's not the same. The leadership is different. We can't assume the worst about healthy leaders just because we have our own baggage. And so we had to work through that with each other, and there's multiple times he would talk me off the ledge and vice versa. So between those three guys, Jason Graves, shout out to that dude, Gary Webb, the executive pastor. Jason Graves was the lead pastor. Gary Webb was the executive pastor, and Chase Findell, the middle school pastor. And I can pretty much guarantee if it weren't for those three dudes, I wouldn't be sitting here now.
Come on. Thank you to those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
For real.
And that's just three guys. There's many other mentors that have poured into me as well. So if any of those guys happen to be watching, there's many other people too that have had an impact. I consider myself a leadership mutt in the sense that there's a little bit from this pastor that I've got, and a little bit from this, a little bit from this guy, a little bit from this podcast, a little bit from this sermon. So I'm kind of a culmination of a lot of different leaders who have spoken into my life, and I'm thankful for all of them. And so if there was possible, I don't even think it's possible, but to be able to somehow roll the credits like the end of a movie, you know, if you were to roll the credits of all the people that have made an impact in my life, even, honestly, even bad leaders have a role in the credit line of my life, because there's things that I've learned of what I don't want to be, who I don't want to be, but also as I've matured and grown up more, and even in the seat that I have now, I look back at the people that have been my authority in the past, and I realize I had when I was in your seat, when I was a youth pastor, there's many times that I look back and like I just remember I didn't get it. When I was a youth pastor, I missed this. I could have served this leader in this way. I could have poured into this leader in this way. I could have washed feet to this guy this way. And I just wasn't aware of that. I just didn't know of those opportunities. And so now I can look back and look back at lessons that have been taught to me and realize I missed it at the time, but here 15 years later, now I get it. You know?
I love that. That's the professional side. Now going back to your youth pastor side and experience working with teenagers.
Going back to the ghetto side.
It was a dream, huh? You loved it every second.
The
There was never-
first
there was-
4 years I didn't, but I
But it
learned
was
to love
it was your fault, not the teenagers' fault, right? Teenagers are perfect. Am I getting that
See what I'm
correct?
working with here? Do you see what I'm working
This is your day to day, huh?
He needs a promotion.
You know, in all honesty, Graham,
Preach.
the teenagers, and I would venture to assume that Vaughn probably believes the same. The teenagers is what makes it worth it, to be honest.
Yep.
Because, and please forgive me if anything I say sounds condescending to the youth.
You're canceled.
But people between the ages of middle school ages and high school ages are very moldable. And in my role now, my primary audience, so I'm 42 years old, which just dates me off your podcast, but my most effective range of demographic is 10 years older and 10 years younger. Meaning, if I'm 42, 32 to 52 is my sweet spot as far as ages. And so with that, I know where my demographic is and where I'm most effective, which is older than you and your demographic. So I know that I'm, so to speak, past my prime when it comes to speaking to youth. I'm in a different prime now, speaking to the audience that I primarily have. But when I was in the youth pastor really age, when I was most effective in speaking to the next generation, talking to youth, there was a lot of ROI, meaning return on the investment. Speaking to adults from 32 to 52, you've heard the phrase before, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And I have experienced that with teaching adults, because adults are set in their ways. They've been set in their ways, many of them for decades. And to teach them something new or different that is not what they believe or what they grew up, I'm having to break habits that are oftentimes decades old. And that's really difficult to do with an adult congregation. With youth, a lot of the bad habits are not decades old because they're young. So you can formulate and you can help mold and you can help lead and guide them in the right direction. And honestly, I miss some of that. I miss some of the responsiveness of the next generation saying, I didn't know that the Bible taught this. I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. And then seeing the fruit of that, of it worked. And I'm going to keep doing this. And then friends inviting other friends and friends being excited to tell other friends about the gospel of Jesus. You know, the people who get most excited, the people who grow this church the most are the people who have been here for less than 12 months. Isn't that crazy?
Makes sense,
It's
though.
people who are excited, and you know, it's kind of a challenge to people who have been Christians for decades, because for somebody that recently heard the message of the gospel, that God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. When somebody hears that for the first time, possibly coming from another faith or another tradition or native tradition or whatever it may be, or maybe agnosticism or atheism, whatever, the people that hear the message of the good news of the gospel, that God loves you, that he sent his son for you, when that's new to somebody and they grab a hold of that, they get excited because they all of a sudden have hope that they didn't have. They have potential for joy that they didn't have. They have a future where their eternity is secured in heaven that they didn't have. I mean, it's life-changing when somebody grasps that. And because of that, there's an overflow of their heart. I mean, that's what their mouth speaks. And they just can't contain that joy. And they tell their friends, their coworkers, their family members. That's why we video all the baptisms, because the baptisms, oftentimes it's those people who are most bold and courageous to share their faith. They're willing to go on a camera with it. They're willing to get wet for it. They're willing to go in a tank for it. Then they're also probably willing to tell their neighbor about Jesus. And so, you know, there's a lesson to be learned for people who've been in the church for a long time, Christians who have been Christian followers or Christ followers for a long time. And that's to go back to your first love. Why did you begin to follow Jesus? It's almost like when you've been married for a long time. Why did you fall in love with this person in the first place? You need to start dating your spouse after a couple of years.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's similar about Christianity. You need to start dating Jesus again. You need to start spending time with Jesus. You need to have that intimacy, that spark, that excitement, because when you have that, you're willing to tell the world about Jesus.
How about and that's great, and I want everyone to experience that, but for you guys, and what I hear a lot in this community when these guys invite friends is that there's a predetermined, or even this, they'll go to church, but in their head they'll make, I don't want to say excuse. I don't know if it's something that triggers them to say this, but like, it's not about Jesus enough, so I don't want to buy in to this thing. And so they have a predetermined thing in their mind that there's a misunderstanding about church because it's just games or it's just fun. And these are teenagers because they want to sound sophisticated, right? Or am I wrong? But I feel like a lot of kids.
No, you're right.
Are you talking about them, or are you talking about like other people that they would be inviting?
Other people that they'd be inviting, if they.
We don't go to church. This doesn't talk about Jesus enough. I'm like, well, that's your bad if these guys are saying it.
No, not these two.
Not
I
these
hope
two,
not.
no.
I hope not.
I just vaunt all the time, but not the church. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I'm part of the
Fair
church.
enough.
Nerd.
Yeah, you can criticize a part of it. You can criticize certain things that need to change, and Vaughn entirely needs to change.
Oh, I thought we were going into
Yeah,
a deep
no, we're
conversation.
not.
Dang it.
I
No,
did
we're
too.
not.
I took
Bad.
that hook, line, and sinker.
No, that's 100% true, man. And I have lots of friends who, I have one friend right now, who's
Who's imaginary?
I don't have friends. No, I have one friend. I love him to death, but you know, he says, man, they don't talk about Jesus enough sometimes, and I feel like that friend, you know, he comes and he's looking for, he sees what he's looking for sometimes, as far as he sees, oh, they're playing a game to try to get engagement. That he doesn't, you know, during the message, that's not what he's talking about, and he's not applying those things to his life. And it's a shame because he's, you know, my best friend, but right, it's just not there, right? And so he, you know, I see that a lot from a lot of different people, man. That's either, you know, oh, I think this Jesus thing is stupid. I shouldn't be excited. A lot of teenagers my age like don't feel like they should ever be excited about anything. Like it's like I gotta play it cool. You know, oh, I'm going out with I'm going out with the girl, and I got these things, and you know, oh, and like Jesus, yeah, cool, whatever. You know, like that's how this attitude wants to, you know what I mean? There's a lack of soul in, like a lot, like there's lack of enthusiasm and energy and care almost in a lot of things, in almost everything, right? And it's too cool to care about certain things, and so I think, unfortunately, and this is a travesty, because I do see a lot of people who aren't like super into the fact that they're okay, that they've been saved, that they've survived because of God, right? It's like, oh, it's yeah, thanks, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'll be there I'll show up on Christmas and Easter. I'll show up, maybe I'll go with my family, but like I'm not gonna be super into it. If I go to the church, I'm gonna sit in the back and just kind of like, or if I go to youth, sorry, I'm gonna sit in the back and kind of just like not really answer. You know what I mean? Like this whole thing. And so I see that a lot, and that scares me. And then I see the exact opposite. I see people who are like, and there's no such thing as over the top, but over the top with it, right? And that's a great thing. And so it's kind of interesting to see these two characters almost. You have people who are too cool and people who are all for it, right? And versus I feel like it's a little more evened out, at least looking at people older than me. I don't know if that's an incorrect perception, but I see people like that are super, super old, like 30.
Wow.
I'm just playing. No,
Makes sense.
On the verge of death. 30.
Yeah, I see ancient people. He just turned 30. Happy birthday, Vaughn.
That was the smoothest diss. That was.
Yeah, no. So I see these ancient people who are past their prime and irrelevant now, and they tend to be more mediocre. They don't get quite as excited, but they're also
I feel like the
sometimes not
insults
too.
just keep coming, bro.
Sometimes they're just not. Oh, right now for whatever I feel one-sided, man. I feel like I haven't been getting made fun of enough by you yet.
Staying calm. My boss is here. I gotta stay cool.
Yeah, I got you. He's never said anything bad, by the way, ever.
Thanks.
Yeah. No. So I just feel like it almost evens out a little bit, and it's like something big in youth ministries. How do we get those people, those A-type people, to turn into B-type people, excited people? You know what I mean?
Let me speak about your best friend, your imaginary best friend.
Yeah. Who doesn't exist?
Yeah. Whoever that person is,
Isn't.
if if the complaint is Hill's youth doesn't speak about Jesus or teach about Jesus enough.
He said the same thing. He said the same thing about other ministries.
Well,
Okay.
so
I just want to put that out
my
there.
point though. Somebody like that is probably already attending a church somewhere. Maybe or maybe not in your case, but somebody that would in general say something like that is comparing a church to another church, and really, what I am quite frankly not interested in at all in ministry is taking people from one church to bring them over to this church.
I love that.
I don't care. As long as you are in a Bible teaching church and you feel like that can be your home. I was gonna say where you can be fed, but I think even that is a misnomer, because as long as the Bible is being preached at the church, God says about His own word, "My word does not come back void." So one of my pet peeves about ministry or people complaining about churches in general, no, I don't get fed there. Anybody that says that about any Bible teaching church, because there's churches that don't teach the Bible, and that's what I mean. But a Christian church, there's 120 churches in San Juan County. And anybody that says anything about any church that teaches the Bible, I try to correct them. And I ask them, is the Bible taught at that church? And if the answer is yes, the problem is not the church, it's the person who's complaining.
Yeah.
Because they've closed their heart off to whatever God, the Holy Spirit, might be saying to them, and they've shut themselves off. And it actually is indicative of pride, because basically what they're saying is if I go to that church and the Bible's taught and God says my word doesn't come back void, that person is basically saying God's a liar, and I know more than God because God can't teach me anything. So they're actually revealing their spiritual immaturity by saying that Jesus isn't being taught enough.
Yeah, and I think we had a conversation about that one time about the church, about how different churches preach in different ways, and like you said, as long as it's scriptural. But yeah, some people don't have the attention span as somebody else, or some people take things in a certain way and some people another way. And I've been to many youth groups, and this one was the best one for me because of the way that we do things. I mean, we'll do 3 to 5. One week we had 5 worship songs, but 3, sometimes 4, barely 5. But yeah, we usually have quite a bit of worship songs, and yeah, we do a lot of games. We spend a lot of time on that, but our sermons are over 20 minutes long, 20 to 30.
It's most, and so what I think in my buddy's case, I'm going to go back to my buddy. I'll sorry to interrupt, but I think his thing is he's comparing to his perception of churches in general, and he feels like it should be almost, like, how do I put this? I feel like he's comparing to a completely and entirely, like, idea of a perfect church where everything that's said is flawless. Everyone in there is flawless. Every second of every, you know what I mean? Where it's entirely filled up with content. Like, and I think that's what he has this vision in his head of a church that doesn't actually exist.
Okay.
And that's what he's comparing it to, I think.
Well, and that's true because if you think about church, the word church comes from the Greek word ekklesia, which is a group or a gathering or movement. So a church is a group of people. So for somebody to say that I don't like that church, really they're saying I don't like part of the bride of Christ. I don't like a portion. It's almost like saying I don't like that eye. I like the foot, but I don't like the eye. I like the ear, but I don't like the hand. You're calling part of the body of Christ ugly. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. You call my wife ugly, we're going to have words, And you call the bride of Christ ugly, makes me wonder if Jesus wants to have words with those people. But really, what you were talking about, Zeke, is going back to what you were saying. It's really preferential. And it's okay for somebody to prefer 2 hours of worship in a worship service in 10 minutes of teaching. I watched a sermon from a church in town the other day. There's literally 5-minute sermon, 2.5 hours of preaching. Or, I'm sorry, 2.5 hours of worship, 5 minutes of preaching. That's not my style. That's not my preference, but some people prefer that. Right. Some people prefer the inverse of that, one worship song and 2.5 hours of teaching. Mm-hmm. So really it's preferential. What flavor of ice cream do you like? In fact, let me just ask, what's your flavor of ice cream?
I would say mint chocolate chip.
What's yours, Graham?
Got to be caramel.
Caramel?
Whoa. Time out. Are we?
Him and his imaginary friend eat it every night.
To each his own.
Get caramel in their teeth. Mint chocolate chip. It's OG.
See, all of you are incorrect.
The best.
Oreo ice cream.
Okay, here we go.
That's my number 2. I feel like I
it's
got.
not.
Yes, it is.
I respect that.
There is a place in multiple different cities. There's one in Denver. There's one in Phoenix. There's one in San Diego. It's called
Hell.
It's called. Wow.
Whoa,
Vaughn, you can't even.
Hey, Matty Brown would be disappointed.
There is a town in the Bahamas called Hell.
Vaughn, you can't even eat.
And I've been to Hell.
Shut up. Stop dissing.
I've been there. I got a postcard from Hell.
Been to Hell?
Anyway, so
is it just like a bunch of fire? Like, what does the postcard look like?
It actually is. What are they? I think they're stalagmites. Stalagmites. You know the inverted things on the bottom of the front. Do you know what stalagmites are?
Trevor says yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the mites are coming from the ground, right? Tights are tight to the ceiling.
Oh, we're just making up stuff,
Anyway,
but okay.
they're like little things that come up from the ground, but it's magma.
Are
It's like lava that has been inverted somehow, and that's what Hell in the Bahamas looks like. It's an actual town. Look it up. I got a postcard. What were we just talking about before that?
Your distaste to Oreos.
Handles. Handles is an ice cream brand that they have in certain cities, and they have a flavor called Ori dough, and it's Oreos and cookie dough mixed in together, and it is hands down the best ice cream in the history of ice creams. So all that to say, you're incorrect about your preferences. But my point is, as you eat churros, my point is that we're all entitled to have our preference. You think that I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I think that you're wrong. Yeah, see? It's so none of us are actually right. We just have preferences as far as what our flavor of ice cream is. And that's how people are with churches too. It's okay to have a preference for a certain style of communicator. Vaughn is a very specific style, has a very specific style.
And it's wrong.
That was good. but we have another pastor on staff here at Hills Church, and his name is Pastor Jeff Heischen.
Yeah,
Jeff and Vaughn are completely different communicators.
Yeah,
100%.
And both are very effective for different reasons.
Absolutely.
So I would be wrong to say Pastor Vaughn is wrong as a communicator and Pastor Jeff is right. I'd guess be incorrect in saying, well, Pastor Jeff is wrong and Vaughn is right.
Yep.
They're both using how God has wired them, and they're taking their personality, taking Scripture, helping it make sense to the next generation in a way that makes sense to them, and they do a great job at it. And so neither one is right. It's just that they present God's word in different ways. And what's kind of cool about this particular congregation is that our congregation loves Vaughn, and they also love Jeff.
Yeah.
So it's almost like saying, I love Oreo ice cream and cookies or what'd you say? Mint chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip.
That's like the worst of all ice creams.
I'm kind of with
but,
you there.
But it's kind
I'm
of
on your team for this one.
yeah. Thank you, Bryce.
Dude.
It's like somebody saying that they love both ice creams, and that's possible. I
Right.
love pistachio ice cream too.
Ooh.
Have you had it?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
It's
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
absolutely
Yes.
not.
You can't even
Oh.
That's a good point. You
Okay,
can't
but
eat
that's
pizza.
new. That's new.
Gluten-free
That's not-
crust.
That's not
loser.
new. That's
True,
been 5
true.
years.
eat pizza. Hey,
So-
I have that at my restaurant, but you never come by.
But would you? Not anymore.
What restaurant are you at?
Riverside Pizza.
It's great pizza.
Yeah, shout out. They're some of the
Great
best pizza
pizza.
ever. All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna interject real quick
Cool.
because I want to get this off.
I had
Shameless.
something
No,
cool.
hold on. Shameless plug. Shh. No, shameless plug to Rush Conference. Jeff's message at Rush Conference was one of the best messages I've ever seen in my life. Right,
Come
and so
on, Jeff.
Yeah, so I just want to shout out Jeff there. And also sign up for Rush Conference. Gosh. All right, Vaughn.
you.
Jeff was a youth pastor.
If it's true, if one person, and I fell into this trap where you try to cater to everyone's feedback or disagreement or wants, and you try to do whatever they tell you or what they say, that gets tiresome and it's almost near impossible.
Absolutely.
But when you do try, though, because you want to try to love people, but it becomes almost an impossible, Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise type of task to make sure that you please everybody. But we're not in the ministry to please people,
Correct.
right?
Absolutely.
But we're in the ministry to please Jesus, to make him known, to make him smile upon us. And if everybody's opinion mattered, does it matter? Does everyone's opinion matter? When it comes to an email, when it comes to feedback on the youth ministry, you should do this. You should extend the time here. My kid has something going on this night. Change the time, extend it. Don't like how. When do we start measuring what we need to do, or why we do what we do?
So there's many
There is.
layers of unpacking what you just described. So absolutely, everybody's opinion matters. However, you shouldn't listen to everybody's voice. Not everybody should have a voice to you. If there's a troll online that doesn't know who you are and doesn't care about who you are, and they start trashing you, this isn't just for you. This is for anybody. If some stranger starts blasting you online, do you give attention to that voice?
Yeah.
No, they don't know you. They don't know your heart. They don't know who you are. So I get feedback all the time, good, bad, and ugly feedback, and I have discovered that I have to let the worst feedback go, but I also have to let the best feedback go,
Oh, here we go.
because I'm not as bad as the worst of the worst comments that people make about me, and I'm not as good as the best of the best comments that are made about me. So perhaps I'm somewhere in the middle, but I have to not just hold on to the amazing praise that I get,
Right.
because I'm going to get this inflated ego. Like, I'm not that good, but I'm also not that bad.
Yeah.
But I also have I have a handful of people who have a voice to my heart, to my soul, and that's a very small list of people. And I grant them permission because as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. And if I get so conceited and prideful to say that nobody has a voice, good or bad, that's a very dangerous place to be,
Yeah.
because then I do whatever I want to do, and I don't report to anybody.
Right.
And so I grant permission. I actually seek out people and say, hey, I trust your discernment. I trust your wisdom. Will you be an advisor, and will you speak to my life based on anything that you see that's good or bad? And so those people can call me out, and those people have the authority to call me out. And I welcome it, because I'm one bad decision from destroying everything that's precious to me. I love what I get to do. I would do what I do at this church for free. It blows my mind even now that this is my job. Like when I was DJing, like I get paid to DJ. Like, I get paid to put on a party. Like, this is awesome. It's so much fun. But I was talking to somebody the other day. Like, I was on a TikTok live stream the other day with another pastor from Tennessee, and he was saying that being a pastor is his favorite job that he's ever had, and people were trashing this dude online. And I was like, no, I'm backing this dude, because me too. Even though as a DJ, even though I mean, you only mentioned one thing, but there's a lot of other things that I did that are on my resume, and being a pastor is hands down the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life. I had a couple of years where it was a rough ride, But I'm so glad I pushed through that time because I'm having so much fun now.
So you would say if people want to do full-time ministry, and we got a lot of youth in our ministry that would love to do full-time ministry, would you say do it? Would you
Gosh. So ministry is...
No.
Absolutely not.
We didn't even get to the other things to unpack in your previous question, but I forgot what your question
the
was.
onion, sorry. I know. I have so many things.
I don't know. I'd have to
This
go
is-
back
this
and
is
rewind
how
the tape.
Every Wednesday and Sunday are with
Well, I'm going to watch this back at some point and be like, dang it, I forgot to say the other two things. What was your most recent question? What'd you just ask? Does anybody remember? What'd you just say?
I'm trying to think. It was because then the onion. You said peeled layers, and I started thinking.
I know,
about
but it was
onions.
right before that. Does anybody know? Producers? G's not even paying attention.
We literally
He's
have
sitting
two
on his phone.
producers, and nobody has anything to say about that. What was I saying?
I don't know.
It was something really good.
Everybody online knows. They're like, you idiots. It was
We
this.
missed the whole conversation.
I am ready to read those comments. Please leave them below because it boosts engagement.
We were talking about careers. We were talking about enjoyment. Talking about pastoring. Oh, you were talking about next generation students that are interested in becoming pastors.
Yeah.
High five.
Oh,
High
yeah.
five
Yeah.
for me unwrinkling
Wait,
a
that's
wrinkle.
what you were talking
Yeah,
about?
that's
I
what-
remember that.
That's what you just asked.
That
you
was
said.
recent.
Yeah, but you
that's
wanted
what
you
I'm
wanted to
saying.
answer the one right before that.
I know.
right?
I forgot that. Forget that. Water under the bridge. Let me. I was gonna say if you can remember, post it in the comments, but that's not
Please.
gonna help us because
We'll answer in the
this
comments.
isn't gonna air.
Yeah, we'll answer
right away.
We'll have him answer in a few weeks.
Okay, tag me on a comment.
Cool.
Anyway, going back to your question, I think before we peel the onion,
Yeah.
kids, students, youth that are interested in becoming pastors or going into vocational ministry. So two parts to that. One, it is, like I said, hands down the best job. And even to quote this pastor out of Tennessee, he was like, it's the most important career in the world. And I was like, I've never gone as far to say that, but I can understand that type of statement. I mean, there's a lot of important jobs out there of doctors, surgeons, lawyers, police, firefighters, people saving lives, But I was thinking about this just recently when this guy from Tennessee said that, and I was like, there's legitimacy to that because a pastor is involved in not just temporal things. We're involved in changing eternities and having a role in that. So I can understand our perspective. Not just considering eternally, changing eternities and impacting generations, but like I said, in my experience, it's a blast knowing that my day-to-day is changing people's marriages.
Yeah.
It's changing families. I told you I get feedback all the time, and a lot of that's negative, but I hear a lot of positive all the time about, people. I just got several emails this morning of my life's changed because of blank, blank, blank. My life has changed because of this. And to think that, I used to work at a restaurant too. And when I worked at a restaurant, even when I worked in radio for that matter, when I worked in radio from 5 to 10 in the morning, 50,000 people listening every single morning on a hip hop radio station. I got off the air by 10 a.m. By 11 a.m., people forgot what I talked about. I had no lasting impact. And that's really what kind of brought me to this point of, God, bring me my next chapter. I want to have great impact. But I never thought that would be becoming a pastor. And now I see in hindsight what God was doing because he, Psalm 37:4 says, delight yourself in the Lord and he'll give you the desires of your heart. The desire of my heart was wanting to have a lasting impact.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that the tool to get to that point was in vocational ministry. I just wanted to change people's lives. I wanted to have a role. I wanted to have a job that made a difference in the world. And the avenue on how to achieve that was becoming a pastor. So going back to the question, Vaughn, for any student, any young person that is interested in becoming a pastor, going into vocational ministry, meaning that you'd be working in the ministry in some sort of capacity, because there are a lot of volunteers. Probably 98% of this church is run from volunteers. But for people that are interested in making this a career, I'll tell you this. I didn't feel called to ministry until I was 27 years old. And if anybody watching this, if you feel that sense prior to that, then high five to you. Kudos to you. Because had I started a decade earlier, who knows where God would have me now? Who knows what that would look like? Now, don't take that in a negative sense. I love where God has me. So it's not like I have this desire to be somewhere else, and I don't.
Get out of here, man. Go.
Yeah. Peace out. On my dark days, I do. Like when I get 10 negative emails in a day, it's, I should just leave.
You get 10?
20.
Light work.
Yeah.
They're all from Graham.
But if somebody has this desire at a young age to go into ministry, I would say nurture that and test that and try that. Maybe stand on a stage at youth and give announcements, and then maybe deliver a sermon. Maybe venture into that and see if that's something that you really do enjoy, because not everybody's called to ministry. Let me take that back. Everybody's called to ministry in the Great Commission. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're called to ministry. Not everybody's called to vocational ministry, is what I mean. And if you feel like that's you, I would explore that, because there's an estimated 78,000 churches that are going to close in the next 2 years. And there's not a whole lot of young people that have the desire to become a pastor or go work at a church somewhere. So Christianity in the United States is shrinking right now. And it's similar to the airlines. People don't want to become pilots anymore. And so the few people that do want to become a pilot, there's more and more of a demand for those few people. If anybody feels called to become a pilot, great time to do it. You will, within the next 5 to 10 years, you will be making bank as a pilot, because Southwest is going to poach you, United, Delta, American. I think there's going to be a massive merging together of airlines because there's so few pilots out there that are coming out of the military.
Yeah.
So there's some industries like pilots for airlines that are there's people just not interested in going into that industry anymore. And vocational ministry is one of them. Not as many people want to pursue that. So there's going to be, in the next 5-10 years, a huge demand for more people working in churches, not as many young people that are stepping into those leadership opportunities. And so all that to say, if you feel called, you feel like this might be something that God's putting on your heart, pursue it, because in my case, it's a blast. I love it. There's a need for it. There's a demand for it. And to quote scripture, the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. And that's becoming more and more of a reality every single day. So all that to say, if you're at all watching this and you're interested in working at a church someday, take steps, even if they're small steps. Come talk to Pastor Vaughn, even if you don't attend Hills Youth, if you go to some other church, you're watching from some other church, go to whoever your youth pastor is and be like, listen, give me more responsibility. Jesus talks about this. When you're responsible with this, God gives you this. When you're responsible with that, he gives you this. And you'll get more and more responsibility. And in that time, you will discover, is this a passion? Is this what God has created me for? Is this an actual calling? Or was this like a fleeting thought? If it's just a fleeting thought and you're like, man, I really feel called to be an actor, then go be an actor. If you really feel called to be a teacher, go be a teacher. Like, do whatever. This goes back to marksman, what we're talking about. That's what I talk about in marksman, is you got to figure out what God has created you and designed you for, and pursue that with reckless abandon. And whatever that is, whether it's vocational ministry or something, pursue it. And I know this is a lot of me talking, but let me say this too.
You're good.
You're the guest for a reason, bro.
Thanks. One of the biggest mistakes that I saw when I was in your seat, when I was a youth pastor, one of the biggest mistakes that I saw, especially with upperclassmen high school students, was that they would have these dreams, they would have these ideas of, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that, maybe I could do this. And they would have paralysis by analysis, meaning that because I'm not sure if I should pursue option A or B or C, I'm not going to do any. I'm not going to pursue any.
Can't even get started at all. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't take any steps at all because I'm not really sure. I'm not 100% should I do this or this or this or this. I'm not 100%, so I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait for a sign. And meanwhile, months go by, years go by, still waiting, God, still waiting. Well, I'll tell you this. I didn't have 100% assurance that I was supposed to come here. I was at a 99, but I didn't have 100% assurance.
So is that a God thing still then, if you don't have 100% assurance?
So here's what I tell people. And if you're married, it's a little bit different. But if you're single, if you're a single person, here's what I tell you. If say you got option A, B, or C, right? Or even narrow it down to A and B. And you're not entirely sure, should I do this or should I do this? And so I'm just going to weigh back and forth. I would weigh it 100% between the two of them. Which one has 51% or higher? And if option A is, say it's 51 and 49, pursue option A. Just discard option B, pursue option A, go at it with everything you have. And let's say 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, you're like, you know what? I made the wrong call. It should have been B. Well, then redirect. Go back to B.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you've learned some valuable lessons. You've learned some things by taking steps, by taking action. Meanwhile, if you had just been sitting on the couch doing nothing with option A or B because you didn't have 100% assurance for either one, you haven't learned anything. You've learned to be apathetic. You've learned to be lazy. You've learned to not take steps. I would rather somebody that's, a student, a young adult, whatever, I would rather they take option A, they realize 6 months in, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing, pursue option C, then, 6 months down the road, this isn't what I want to do, pursue option F, and, just keep going, and along the way, it's not lost. There's so many, my first job I ever had was selling candy out of a backpack in my middle school.
Ooh, I can tell you about that one.
Yeah.
I can tell you about that one.
And I made a lot of money. You did the same thing?
Yeah.
You were selling drugs, though, huh?
I sold cookies. They were the.
Isn't it?
I
Isn't
sold the
so-
grandma's
no.
cookies. Though.
I sell cookies.
I sold the grandma's cookies.
I like turtles.
You did the grandma.
I made-
I like turtles.
In the 8th grade, I made over $1,000 selling Pop-Tarts since I was like a gifted kid, so I had a couple classes at PV. So I made over $1,000 selling to freshmen at PV Pop-Tarts, not drugs, thankfully. I probably would have been more if I was, one day. Anyways,
Oh, jeez.
One day.
What the?
One day.
it's fine. It's my option F. All right, but
He has up to F on the options.
My point in bringing that up, though, is that, you can empathize with this, Graham, because there's things that I learned selling to kids, candy to kids in middle school. There's things that I learned that are still applicable today. There's things that I learned in the DJ industry that are still applicable today. So my point is that even if you're pursuing option A and that doesn't wind up being your long-term option, you're learning things that are transferable skills that will transfer to whatever you're going to do next. You pursue that, transfer that to whatever you're going to do next. So you're learning and growing along the way, as opposed to people just sitting back and thinking, well, someday God's going to tell me, and I'm going to have 100% assurance that this is what I'm supposed to do, this is where I'm supposed to go. And you may never get that. You may never get 100% assurance. So at some point, you just got to take the leap and say, I have more faith in this option than this option. I have more peace in this option than this option, so I'm going to do something. I'm going to go for it. And hopefully, again, people that are watching right now, if you're weighing between options right now, whichever one's got 51% more of your vote, go for it. Try it. Give it a shot. See what happens.
I did want to jump in real quick because we started out with Marksman and then kind of got off. With Marksman, tell me a little bit more about the program. You gave me the rundown and everything. How many people have ran through? Like, when you open up, if somebody wanted to register, can they be a 12-year-old? Can they be, you know what I mean? Like what's the, you know what I mean? Kind of tell us about that.
Why don't you want a 12-year-old in your ministry, in the marksman ministry?
Well, I don't know
Why?
what to.
No.
So we
Remember
really,
his gap, though? He said that he has a target. His target's not,
It's old people.
his prime's not the youth anymore. It's more
Yeah, that's true.
the younger
my
adults,
target
right?
demographic, 32 to 52. Yeah, that's my sweet spot. That's not to say that teenagers can't come to the church and can't grow and can't learn. It's not to say that 70. I mean, we have 70-year-olds. We have 80-year-olds that come here. A lot of them have left.
By the way.
But that's true. I mean, some people out of that demographic will have to kind of stretch their own comfort zone to be able to sit under my teaching, and that's fine. We all have our own preferences. But so going back to Marksman, really it's intended for 18 and over, because a big part of that is because we get into some gnarly stuff with these dudes, and some of the things that a 15-year-old might bring up are very different than what a 50-year-old would bring up. And in some way, I want to protect the innocence of the youth, even though what you guys see on a day-to-day basis is not nearly what I saw when I was your age, because of technology and because of availability and accessibility and all that. Yet at the same time, there's some really dark things that come out from marksman discussions. There's a period of time when guys go through confessing, and some of the things that I've been a pastor for 15-something years, and even some of the things that I hear shake me, because it's like, dang, like I just didn't even know that kind of evil was out there. And so we go through some really, really some crazy stuff in some of these discussions. That sounds scary, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. But really, we've had a few exceptions of like sons of people that have come through, sons of leaders that have come through, and really I can tell as a communicator and as the one teaching it, I can tell who's tracking with me and who's not ready for it yet. And most of the people under 18 haven't been ready for it yet. So, and again, that's not to imply, that's not an insult on youth in any means. But that's the majority of the people that come through are over 18. Probably most of them are within the target demographic of who I reach the most, of 32 to 52. But to go back to answer your other question, we've had over 300 men or so that have gone through Marksman. Today is actually a really exciting day. In fact, you're watching this on a slight delay. But today, the day we're actually filming, there's a new church down in Las Cruces that's launching Marksman right now.
Hey, let's
speak.
go.
That's awesome.
Shout out to them.
That is
man.
awesome.
And what's cool about it is that it's not Marksman is 6 weeks long. But it's not intended to be a 6 week long Bible study. It's intended to be a men's ministry where there's a strategy where men are reaching men who are reaching men who are reaching men. 1 Corinthians 11:1 says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." And that's a life verse for me. And that's one of the main things that I teach in Marksman to these guys is I want to equip men to be disciple makers. Now that you've been trained and equipped, now go and do likewise. It's a kind of a mini Great Commission. You've been trained, you've been prepared, you've been equipped. Now take what you've learned and go and do the same thing. And what's kind of cool is that just this last week, I've had a couple guys that have come through as participants in Marksman, risen in leadership, and those dudes went down to Las Cruces and trained a whole batch of 10 new
That's
leaders.
awesome.
And I wasn't even there. You know, so these guys that have come through that are volunteers, they've graduated from Marksman, they've led Marksman, and now they've trained a whole new batch of a new generation of leaders. And those 10 are the ones that are launching it to an entire church right now of all these other guys down in Cruces. And so what's cool is that's launching right now. There's 2 other churches in town that are launching Marksman. I had another conversation with another church this morning, and another one in San Diego. And so we have about 5 or 6 churches that are launching Marksman. So Marksman is venturing outside of the church, and that's one of the things that I think that God really put on my heart years ago is that there's a lot of churches that silo themselves, and that they want to be better than every other church, and they want to be the best of the best, and they're okay taking people from other churches and other congregations and really just trying to be the biggest and the best. And really what I feel like God put on my heart years ago when I was out in San Diego is I want to help other pastors. I want to help other local churches. I believe the Great Commission, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. I believe the Great Commission is best fulfilled in the local church. And I don't mean just Hills Church. I mean in all the Christian local churches. And so if I can help a pastor in Tennessee, if I can help a pastor in Las Cruces, if I can help a pastor in California and help that guy be more effective in reaching more people and nobody knows I was a part of it, I'm totally down for that. I want to build the kingdom. I don't really care about just building a congregation.
Right.
I want to build the kingdom.
There's ego and memory.
And so this congregation is a part of me building the kingdom. But if part of me building the kingdom is building leaders, pastors, and training people up and sending them out, then what a privilege that is. And so, like, just thinking right now, there's 10 guys leading Marksman in Las Cruces, and I haven't met a single one of them. And they're teaching content and curriculum that I've written. I mean, I wrote a book called Marksman. They're going through that literally right now. But that's awesome for me. There's a great sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in that, of training people who train people who train people. And when people, this kind of goes back to what you were saying, Graham, earlier, of kind of this consumerism mentality in student ministry where, well, I don't like that student ministry because of this, and I don't like this because of this. But when young people get a hold of this idea of Jesus has changed my perspective about everything, and if I can share that with somebody else, if I get to share that with somebody else, what a privilege that is.
Right.
It's not just about games and entertainment. It's not about that. I don't fault a ministry that has games, because there needs to be games. There needs to be a sense of, this is exciting. This is fun. You thought it was going the other direction?
I was clenching my butt cheeks the whole podcast.
No, I mean, it should be
That's
fun.
why I'm,
It should be fun.
Have you smelled it yet?
Whoa.
We all
I'm
have.
kidding.
we
I'm
all have this-
fasting. There's nothing in there.
We have
There's nothing
nose
in there.
protectors.
Oh man.
Nothing in there.
But what does Jesus say in John 10:10? He says, "I have come that you may have a rich and satisfying life."
Yeah.
Does that mean you should settle for a boring, mundane life, an average, mediocre life? No.
No.
Your life should be an adventure.
9 square. Come
And
on.
so any youth ministry that has fun activities, ways to create excitement, well, good for them because they're thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
Now, if it's all of that, then there's a problem.
Right, absolutely.
But there needs to be a balance of people should have an excitement of I can't wait to be there because this is exciting. And if that's the hook to get them there, whether it's a movie or an activity or a giveaway or whatever, I don't really care. Even if it's girls, to be honest with you, or boys, like I'm only going because of that girl. I'm only going because of that guy.
Yes.
I see that a lot. I
don't-
see that a lot.
I don't care
bad.
though.
It's not
Like
bad.
if that's the hook that gets them there, fine, whatever. Like you're coming for the hot girls, the hot guys, whatever. Because at some point, hopefully the transition is made in the sense that I came
Yeah.
because of this giveaway. I came because of the hook, but I stayed because I realized there's something more to my life, and I didn't know what that was. And now I realize that's Jesus. Jesus provides joy. I came
Yeah.
for the girl, that cute girl. I came for the cute boy. But now I'm staying because of this. And when somebody makes that shift and makes that transition of the why behind why they're there, I'm now here because of Jesus. Jesus grabbed a hold of my heart. My life's never going to be the same. And now I want to be a raving fan. I want to be an ambassador for Jesus. I want to tell anybody and everybody about Jesus. When a teenager gets that kind of excitement, it's contagious.
Yep.
And for people that are just like, well, it doesn't. I don't learn enough about Jesus at that church. They don't get it yet. They don't get it yet, because
Yeah.
if they were in love with Jesus and in love with telling people about Jesus, it would be like, man, that dude preached this verse, and that verse is explosive.
Right.
I'm so glad I came because that verse, they could easily take any verse, even if for 59 minutes it was fun and games, and then one Bible verse. Somebody that's on fire for the Lord would be able to say, that Bible verse, I love that verse because of this and this and this and this and this, and they can capitalize on that and share that with their friends. And sometimes it's a verse they already knew. Sometimes it's something that teaches them something new. I don't know, but one of the things that drives me crazy about ministry in general, adult ministry, student ministry, is consumerism. I'm here to dance for me.
Yeah.
Dance for me. You impress me. Do whatever I want you to do. You have to be engaging enough for me, to entertain me enough for me to come back week 2. At some point, the shift has to be made. The reason why I come is because I have fallen in love with Jesus and what he's done for me. And the more that I can get of that, the more I can remain in Jesus, the more I can grasp up Jesus. I'm getting imaginary toolbox. I'm getting from this sermon, I'm getting tool after tool after tool after tool to make me a more powerful weapon for the kingdom of God. And so somebody that comes on a Sunday night or a Wednesday night to Hills Youth, for example, when they're being equipped with more and more from Vaughn or whoever's speaking, when they're being equipped more and more, it's almost like somebody that's going through training to go into a battle, because battle is school. Battle is working at the pizza place. So let's armor up. Armor up. Sunday's my day to armor up. Wednesday's my day to armor up, because I'm going into the battle, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do everything I can to reach the people out here that I can.
Yeah.
So to switch that and have this mentality of entertain me. You have to impress me
Right.
enough. They just don't get it yet. But when that shift is made of this is my prep time, this is my in church, my worship, when somebody's opening up the Bible, this is my time where I'm getting filled up because I'm about to be unleashed. I get to be the light in the darkness. So fill me up, boys. Vaughn, what do I need to know? Leaders, what do I need to know? Student leaders, what do I need to know? Help get me as prepared as possible, because I'm about to walk into the lion's den. And when people have that understanding, I'm here to be prepared, because there's a war that's going on around us.
Yeah.
And it's not a battle of flesh and blood. It's against evil and the principalities of this dark world. And when a young person grasps that and gets that and starts charging the gates of hell, that's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
And honestly, any youth ministry just needs one. They just need one person to step up to the plate, to start that spark that creates a flame that turns into a wildfire. And
It's this, and if we could always have the camera when these are recording, but it's literally this room because a few have caught that spark
Yeah.
and have realized that. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You speaking over these people on the podcast and in our youth ministry with those words. And speaking of the evil spirits, this is going to close up the segment today, but I wanted to get your perspective, you being in men's ministry, and people might not know like on the Christian reports or certain pastors, but there's a pastor, Mark Driscoll, that's always stirred up the pot for many years. And he runs a men's ministry in Scottsdale. I think now kind of has a men's emphasis
Trinity Church.
in Trinity Church. And there was a men's conference he was invited to, and he was literally speaking for not only maybe 10 minutes before a pastor came up and told him he went too far. And to quote what he said, I've been up since 1 o'clock in the morning, Pastor Driscoll said, in talking about that he's been feeling for the community and the people that may be struggling with the LGBTQ and the identities. And he brought up this reason as to why he was staying up. And this is how he kicked off his session at this men's conference was the reason I'm hoarse this morning is I have been praying and my heart is very burdened for you because this conference has the spirit of Jezebel in it, and it has opened up our event. And as he's saying that, he's passionately speaking as there was just an act for the men's conference before that that had involved a pole, and he referenced it to a stripper pole. And in his mind, he felt that was a Jezebel, an evil spirit bringing to the conference. And the lead pastor of James River Church had asked him from the congregation, yelling out too far, and asked him to end his message right before maybe the 10-minute mark and asked him to leave. Mark Driscoll respectfully heard him and said, I got to get off because the lead guy told me to leave. The lead pastor got on stage and was trying to explain to people that he feels this conversation and what he said, if he felt a certain way about the conference prior to this, that it should have been done in a space the scripture says one-on-one. If you see a problem with something, approach that person. But it was like the perfect storm of events because I don't think Mark Driscoll knew that something was going to play or be shown, and then the pastor came up on stage and ended it. And I just want to get your perspective as a pastor and leading men's ministry when there's a confrontation on stage or you hear something you don't like. How should you approach a situation like that? And these are two well-known identities in the church world and pastor world as we talk about. You guys could be talking about Drake's new album and new video that he just dropped on social media, right? But this is kind of our world. We keep up to date with what pastors are saying and if they're correctly speaking because people following them. So we want to be aware of that. But what are your thoughts about this situation? And you were thinking it's kind of a double thing that on both sides of the coin here.
Yeah, so I don't even know what to Google. James, what did you say?
James River.
Mark
Driscoll Men's Conference.
Yeah. Do you guys have links where you can put them in the comments of this whole thing?
Yeah.
So maybe put a link to that video, and I would encourage you, pause this, go watch that link. There's like a 4-minute clip that you can watch.
Yeah.
And it'll make more sense. And I watched it earlier this afternoon. Pastor Vaughn asked me my thoughts on this, and so I went and watched the video and said, we could just talk about it during the podcast. So you got two pastors, two dynamic personalities, and one of them, Pastor John, is the guy that's putting on this men's conference called Stronger. Mm-hmm. And Pastor Driscoll, who's kind of a controversial pastor in general, he is the guest speaker. And so this is not his home church. Pastor John, it's his home church, it's his conference. Driscoll is the guest. Driscoll is the one you're talking about, Vaughn, that was speaking. And he was referencing, you're right, there was an act, and I believe it was the night before.
It was the night before, okay.
The night before, I guess, which would have been last night?
Yeah.
So last night, there was an opening act with a male dancer who came out, and there was a pole that looks like a stripper pole. And I didn't actually see this act part of it. It wasn't in the video that I saw. But this guy has a stripper pole, took off his shirt, and then climbed the pole. And then he had a sword and swallowed the sword, which is, I don't know how you do that. Whatever. So he's basically a performer, like I don't know, magician, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who else swallows swords. I've never put that on my resume before. And so Driscoll came out and said, like what you said, I'm hoarse right now because I was praying till 1 a.m. because I saw this opening act and it's basically a pagan form of worship. And what Driscoll said, he said the pole is symbolic of an Asherah pole. And I don't presume many people in mid school and high school would know what the Asherah pole is. But basically, it's a pole that is symbolic of sex. I think I'll just put that as lightly as I can. But it's a symbolic pole that people would use to worship their pagan false gods.
Isn't that in the Bible?
Yeah. There's Asherah poles that are talked about in the Bible.
In
Not in the sense that you should worship Asherah poles, but in reference to people that did worship Asherah poles.
No, but you preached on that one time, I think. last year.
Did. Yes. I've talked about, I can't remember what sermon it was.
Was it Sodom and Gomorrah? No.
No.
I don't think so.
But what I talked about was in reference to the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument is a massive spire in Washington, D.C., and that would be considered an Asherah pole. And so
There's so much like symbolism in Washington, D.C.
There is. So Driscoll said this is a form of pagan idolatry, pagan worship, because this guy climbed an Asherah pole. In my opinion, I think that's a little bit of a stretch to say that this pole was an Asherah pole. It probably is not the intent of the organizers of the event. Mm-hmm. In a similar way, every Christmas I set up a Christmas tree in my home, and the Christmas tree actually came out of paganism. So am I worshiping Satan by having a Christmas tree in my home? By
Not
no
if you have an
means.
angel on it.
Yeah, or a star on the top.
Angel topper.
Yep. So I don't consider that pagan idolatry or worship. I love Jesus with all my heart, and by having a Christmas tree in my home does not mean that all of a sudden I'm like, one foot in with worshiping God and then the other foot worshiping Satan. That's not at all. It's a family tradition that we have, and it has no connection whatsoever in my heart or in my mind to pagan idolatry or worship. So I think it's possible for somebody like an entertainer to be able to use a pole of some sort and not have it be related to sexual activity, and have it be, this is a performance of, I'm climbing a pole and look, I can swallow a sword. Like, who can do that? That's a crazy talent. The dude was on America's Got Talent or something. I don't know the guy's name. Anyway, so I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that it's paganism or idolatry or whatever. However, that being said, Driscoll's got a point, because sure, you could make the argument that the Asherah pole in Washington, D.C. In fact, if you go back and watch the full clip with Driscoll, he comes out and says, all of you who are Americans are in a cult because you're American. Well, okay. You could go that far. I mean, if I lived in another country and I was looking at the United States of America, and in Washington, D.C., there's a massive Asherah pole, that's the Washington Monument, you could go as far to say that all Americans are pagan worshipers because of, look at the capital of the United States has, in the center of it, has a symbol of idolatry. So you could go that far, but that's not true, because I'm an American, I'm proud to be an American, and I'm not an idol worshiper. So even though there's the Washington Monument, you can't go that far and make that conclusion that therefore, because we're Americans, we're all in a cult. And furthermore, for Driscoll to say that as an American, pretty sure he's an American, he's basically saying, I too am in a cult. So it's really hard for me to grasp a pastor that says, hey, y'all are all involved in pagan idolatry and worship when he's a part of it, but he's calling other people out when he's also an American. But I also think that's a false call out. You can't call out an American for being a pagan worshiper when that's not everybody that's in the room, So going back to the Asherah pole and the pole that was on stage, would I do that? Absolutely not. I would not have a guy taking off his shirt at a men's retreat and climbing a pole because of this very issue. I wouldn't do it because that's too sketch. Like that's just too far. But I also think it's too far for Driscoll to assume the worst about this guy and therefore say this entire men's conference is corrupt because of the beginning. So Driscoll has a point. I think he took it too far with his assumption about what the intention was. But I also think that Pastor John, the organizer of the overall conference, had a point too, because when Driscoll's coming after him, Driscoll stayed up till 1 a.m. the night before. And Pastor John made the point. He's like, I just spent 30 minutes with Driscoll backstage, and he didn't say anything to me. And so if he's got beef with me about something that I put on, he had a half an hour to bring it up. And clearly Driscoll knew about it because he was up till 1 a.m. the night before praying. And so Pastor John was clearly agitated. If you watch the video, he's clearly upset. He's like, he didn't come to me. Matthew 18 says, if a brother sins against another brother, come to that person and bring it to him. And Driscoll didn't bring it to the pastor. So what I believe about Driscoll and what I know about Driscoll is that he's very shock and awe. He loves to shock people. And I think that he might have held on to this nugget of what he wanted to share. He could have brought it to the pastor as iron sharpens iron. He could have done that behind closed doors and said, listen, bro, you need to repent. You shouldn't have done this. But I think he wanted to go for the shock, to shock the whole group. And I can't judge his heart. I can't judge his intentions. But I've seen a lot of other Pastor Driscoll's videos and whatnot that he posts online, and a lot of it's just really pushing the envelope. He can come across very abrasive and very offensive to people. So I think he was going for the shock. I think he got the shock, but he got the shock from the other pastor. And so Pastor John was like, he's like, you're out of line, you're out of line. And then he said, you're done. So going back to defend Driscoll, Driscoll's like, well, all right, I received that. He folded up his Bible, walked off stage, and that's it.
Which you don't see, in which I think was kind of like a healthy transition of like two men going, well, if you don't feel this is right, I'll be off and not mock him.
It was healthy in the sense that Driscoll was the guest, and he cannot keep the microphone. Like if you guys turned off the mic right now and be like, hey, you're a guest on the podcast, you're done. All right, I guess I'll go home. I think Driscoll, if he had beef with the event, he could have gone to the other pastor and said, listen, I don't think this is right. And I think the right thing for Driscoll would have been to come to Pastor John and say, hey, this wasn't right, and I think you need to confess before your congregation. And that would have given him the chance to do that. And if the pastor had said no, then Driscoll could have walked and said, I don't want to be a part of your thing then. Instead of calling out another leader on stage, yeah. I think that could be pretty selfish. So I see both of their standpoints. I see where Driscoll's coming from. I think it's too far of a stretch. I see where Pastor John's coming from of saying, hey, you're done. Like, you're not representing me or this conference well because you're trashing this conference at the conference. So I think they both could have handled it better. And stuff like that, you know, sometimes any news helps people, you know, it gets things in the news, whether it's good news or bad news. And honestly, it makes me wonder if the whole thing was all set up to let's just create some clips that go viral so more people come to the men's conference next year. That could be a reality, and that's the world in which we live, of more drama gets more views. And so it could have been like orchestrated, like, hey, I'm going to call you out, bro. And when I do, you make a scene, I'll make a scene, I'll walk off stage, we'll get millions of views, and more people will come to the conference next year.
In which I want to tag into this, kind of loop it into this, but I think we need as a Christian community to really emphasize Matthew 18 a lot more, especially in our youth ministry, working with teenagers and teenagers working with other teenagers, is go to the person. They offend you, go to them. Don't sleep on it. Don't assume. Don't have assumptions, because that's what's going to make things worse.
If there's people out there, if you got beef with somebody, have the guts and the courage to go to that person.
Yep. Not
just the guts and the courage, have the decency and respect to say, listen, I don't know if you intended this or not. Here's how I received it. Here's how I perceived your actions or your words. And I want to assume the best about you and about your heart. And I want to be real with you and let you know what you did was hurtful, and what you did, it wounded me. And, you know, oftentimes when you come to that person, they're going to be like, dude, I didn't know that's how it was perceived. I had no idea. So you're giving them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they didn't mean to do that to you. Maybe they didn't mean that to hurt you or wound you. And if they're like, well, I don't care what you think. Okay, well, now you know where they stand. But a lot of times you're going to realize that wasn't their intent. That wasn't their heart. And when they hear your heart of here's how it was perceived, here's how I took it, and you hear their heart, oftentimes in a conversation, I mean, you work it out. And it's just good communication, you know, with friends, with marriages, with coworkers, with staff members. Like, communication is just critical of just being like, listen, dude, here's where I'm at, and let's work this out. Yeah. Especially for Christians, you know. Lots of Christians shoot flaming arrows at other Christians, and it shouldn't be that way.
No. The
easiest people for me to interact with are non-Christians, honestly. The most hate that I've gotten as a youth pastor and as a lead pastor, most hate I've gotten and received is from Christians. And it's sad. It's such a sad reality that Christians want to take out other Christians. Like, we're on the same team. Can't we play ball together? Can't we help each other out? You know, why do we got to pick fights with other Christians? I don't get it. Which is why so many people don't want to be Christian. You know, I think it was
it's not appealing.
Yeah, Gandhi said it's not that I don't like your Christ, I don't like your Christians. Ooh, that stings.
So let that be heard.
Yeah.
We have a role as followers of Jesus Christ to be a light. Start acting like it, huh? All right. Well, guys, Pastor Matt, thank you for having some churros with us. Graham was sneaking something off from Zeke. Little messed up. Hey, shout out to our crew, episode 3. Come on with it, everybody. But again, thank you so much. Any last thoughts by any of you guys in here? You want to put in there? Feeling good? Ooh, let's do
We
this.
should start a giveaway.
Let's do this. We'll do churros. We'll do a churro variety pack
Mm.
of different flavored and styled churros, bags of churros, actual churros.
How are they going to prove that they got this far in the recording? Do they send you a text message, an email, or something to say code word is the fuzzy ferret?
in the comments? They'll have to comment at that 90-minute mark. So when
do
they
that.
when
Well,
they
then,
hear
well,
this-
Yeah.
no, because then they see other people commenting.
Then they'll just click on it.
Yeah, exactly.
spam.
You know what I
The
mean?
first one though. The first one. The
Yeah,
first
but-
one to do.
All right,
it.
yeah. First comment.
first one. If
Reach the full 90 minutes and get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
and,
we'll-
and the
we'll hook
10th
you up,
and the
bro.
20th
We'll hook you up.
and the 50th and the 100th. I mean, don't limit yourself to one. you
All
know?
right, we're gonna do the first 10 people. 10 people. We're using Pastor Matt's church card to get the churros.
Do it.
But hey,
First 100 people.
First 100 people.
We'll 10x it.
Ooh.
I'll pay for it.
Let's go. There you go. Churro variety pack. There you go. Light up the comments. 90-minute mark. You heard it here from the man himself. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. Can't wait for episode 4. It's going to be a good one, guys. See you soon.